Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Sporting Blizzard Podcast, or as I'm just going to call this, Mock Draft Central for the time being. We're going to have our final mock draft here today before the Scouting Combine, and probably free agency to be my guess. There won't be another one until at least after the Combine, but maybe after free agency. Still figuring that out, but as always, I'm joined with my father, Tony. Say hello to everyone, Tony.
Good afternoon to everybody.
Yep. Currently, we're recording this on a Tuesday. I believe today's Tuesday. No, it's a Wednesday. Anyways, it's going up tomorrow at 12 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. So if something happens by then, we apologize. I don't think a team will trade their first round pick. The only thing I could see happening would be a potential move of Derek Carr. But until then, let's just do our mock draft. Let's do what we are doing. And this time, I have the first pick, and I'm dreading this. Not because of what I'm going to do with the Bears or anything. What I'm going to do with a certain team later down, I'm going to complain about them when I get to them. But there are no trades. This is just a mock of what we would do in the position. Over the weekend, I have rewatched some guys. I've rewatched the entire cornerback class. I have some new thoughts on that class. And I also finally got, if you listened to the last mock draft, I finally watched Lucas Van Ness. Finally. But we're going to start off here. I'm on the clock, Chicago Bears. And I think there's a couple things you can do here. You can go edge. You can get them. Maybe the most premier position in the NFL outside of quarterback. Do you think that's a fair assumption?
I'd say that it's talked about like that. I'm a firm believer right now with the way defenses are being built that it's easier to get edge help than it is to get interior defensive line help. But that's me. So
I apologize to everyone for that. That was just my phone having a notification because I forgot to hit silent. If you heard that. But there are two guys I'd be here if the Bears are stating here at one. Jalen Carter's the obvious answer here because he is the best player of the draft. But if we are going to talk about the premier edge being the premier position for them to take, I take Tyree Wilson here over Will Anderson. And we're going to get to that here in a bit. But first is Jalen Carter. He's the best player in this draft. And he is probably the least likely to bust out, if I had to say. Because I do see issues with every prospect. And not saying that Carter doesn't have a few issues. He is still a little raw. He still has a lot to grow. But he's really, really, really good.
I like it. It's what I would do. We've talked about this a lot, just amongst ourselves. And if I'm being completely 100% honest, I think that the Texans are more than just a year away. I think DeMeco's going to come in and he's going to want to build some things. If it were me in this situation, I would not take a quarterback. I would be taking defensive help, try to build up that defense. And since we are doing this, what we would do, I'm going to take Will Anderson.
Really? Over Tyree?
I am, and the reason why I'm saying over Tyree is because he can add a little bit of weight, give that outside pass rush that they just absolutely love, and I think you can find something a little bit later on the interior. They've got a lot of picks, so.
So I believe this is our first mock with Gannon as the head coach of the Cardinals. Now, if I'm Gannon, there's a couple things I want to do. One, I want a new quarterback. I'm sorry, I'm not invested in Kyler Murray long term, but the previous regime invested in long term. I'm stuck with him for at least 2 seasons. So what can I do? What can I do? Well, I look at the defense side of the ball, which the Cardinals' defense was really bad last year. I didn't like their cornerback play at all. I did not like their pass rush that much. It felt like losing Chandler Jones really, really affected that defense as a whole. So we need a pass rusher. Now, I believe in real life the Cardinals will take Will Anderson here. I think Will Anderson's more or less the type of guy they'd want to work with. Kind of put him in that Hassan Reddick role that Reddick had in Philadelphia with Gannon's defense. But Will Anderson isn't my number one rated edge. And this guy may be my number one rated player overall by the end of the draft cycle, and that's Tyree Wilson. And the reason why is freaks like him, and yes, he is a freak. His arms are insanely long. He's quick. He's strong. He can move in, out. He's a freak. Those are the players you want to build around. And this is a brand new GM. This is a brand new head coach. You want your first pick to be as good as possible because that sticks with you for the rest of your career. You get Tyree Wilson. You get potentially an all-pro in a couple of years that can change the game. You're going to deal with the San Francisco 49ers. You need to stop them on the outside and on the inside in the running game or in the pass game as well. Guess what? Wilson can do that. You got Seattle with Kenneth Walker, and I almost called him Keon Walker. Thanks a lot for calling him K9. But you got Kenneth Walker, dynamic player, can run in and out. The Rams, Sean McVay's an offensive mastermind. They'll have stuff to go with. You need a defensive player that can change the game on both inside and out, and Tyree Wilson can provide that for the Cardinals.
Well, I like it. I don't like it because I would like Seattle to get him, but that's beside the point. So here we are with the Colts. Haven't had to trade, and they get their pick of quarterbacks. I am a Seattle Seahawks fan that has dealt with a smaller quarterback for many years, and I am not as sold on Bryce Young as everybody else. I love CJ Stroud. He can make all the throws. I think he's more athletic than what everybody thinks. And so we're just going to take Stroud here. And the Colts didn't even have to trade away multiple draft picks for him.
Okay, so I'm going to have to make sure all my doors are locked. I'm about to make sure they're boarded shut for my safety. Because the quarterback I love in this class is on the board here. The quarterback I think is the best quarterback in this class and would be number one last year and is the best quarterback prospect since Trevor Lawrence, and I'd have him just behind Trevor Lawrence in that class. I got to take Bryce Young here. And as you said, Seattle has experience with a slender quarterback, a smaller quarterback. And if your concern is, hey, he's a little small, he needs to put on weight, guess what? You got Geno Smith. Let's get some weight on you. Let's get you bulked up a bit. Let's take this time and get Bryce Young to the NFL caliber weight, if that's what you want to go with. Get him the strength conditioning coach. Get him with all that. But I don't think you can watch these quarterbacks and not say, this Bryce Young is the most talented quarterback at the position. You can say he doesn't have the NFL body type. I understand that. But when the film is on, he's the best, and it's not even close.
All righty.
Again, I am locking my doors for safety tonight.
Now we have the Lions on the clock.
Well, hang on. You're a Seahawks fan. How would you feel if that happened?
I would hunt you down.
And when he wins the Super Bowl.
It's not so much just how heavy he is. It's Seattle just experienced this year having a quarterback that can read the entire field, and they utilized the entire field. They haven't had that in a long time because Russell Wilson can't read short, intermediate, over the middle. Kyler can't read short, intermediate, over the middle. I don't believe that you're going to find in the NFL Bryce Young can read short and intermediate over the field. It's a difference in he played in Alabama where the offensive line, when you watch it, he has truck holes to where he can throw in between, and you don't have that in the NFL. My opinion, but so now we're on to the Detroit Lions, and the Detroit Lions have had an amazing year. They could go back on do some more on offense. I think it's a little too soon to get a receiver. I think could definitely do with a receiver. I think it's kind of a no-brainer right here to just take Witherspoon and put him on that back end, day one starter. He's got moxie, and he instantly makes your secondary better.
It's hard to disagree. I mean, I know where I'd like to see him get picked, even though I know he won't be on the board.
Yeah, he's not going to be there for Pittsburgh. Sorry.
It was my pipe dream while watching him in the college football season. And then when I saw draft people start talking, I'm like, oh, he's going to be picked high. Broke my heart. Now here I'm with the Raiders, and they just cut Derek Carr. They might roll in the season with Jarrett Stidham at quarterback, which I don't think is going to happen. I think their quarterback's going to be Jimmy Garoppolo. Not saying if that's good or not. If you listen to me in the past, you know my thoughts on Jimmy Garoppolo. But the Raiders have a lot of issues. They have issues on the line. They have issues on the defense. Pretty much point at a position, the Raiders, besides wide receiver and tight end, and they have issues. And you could say, oh, they have Josh Jacobs running back. No, they don't. He's a free agent. They have issues everywhere. It's not a well-constructed team. It's poorly constructed. And it's just not a well-coached team. But if Jimmy G is the quarterback next year, which I think he will be, we have to protect him because he has a history of injury issues. So now I have to prioritize. Do I go left tackle, which they invested a lot of money in Colton Miller? Colton Miller is someone they've paid pretty decently. He is someone, when Gruden came in, he wanted to develop him. I don't think it's panned out to how everyone wanted him to go. So do I go Paris Johnson Jr. here and get that left tackle? Or do I look at left guard in Skronsky? Now, I know a lot of people have Skronsky as a tackle. In my eyes, he's a guard. I don't feel like his arms are long enough to be an elite level tackle. I feel like he can be an elite level guard, though. So what position do I value most here? I'm not going to actually go tackle here. I'm going to go Skronsky. And the reason why I'm taking Skronsky is because I need to bring back Josh Jacobs. I'm not someone who believes in paying running backs, but the Raiders are screwed on offense if they don't, because Jimmy Garoppolo needs a run game to be a good quarterback. He needs it. It's a must. With that current Raiders O-line, it was still a struggle for Josh Jacobs. He was just that good last year. You get Skronsky in, you get that left guard stabilized, you get a bulldozer, and you run behind that for many years to come.
Not bad. I also think that you can try Skronsky out at tackle and see how he holds up.
You can try, but
still automatically move him into guard.
You can try, but where does McDaniels come from?
Well, he comes from New England.
What's Bill Belichick's number one rule with players? Focus on their strengths, not on their weakness. Skronsky's strength is he's a powerful dude. If he gets his hands on you, you're done. The best way to emphasize that strength is moving him to guard.
He's also got great footwork. So
he does. He has very good footwork.
Tackles. Sometimes you just need footwork.
Well, that can be true.
Alrighty. So Falcons are on the clock, and at this point, not knowing what Ritter is, Levis falling to them. I think they're gonna. I think they would take a fly on Levis right here. He came to them. They didn't have to waste any capital, and he is definitely dynamic. So we'll see what they can do with him. I think he kind of does remind me a lot of Tannehill, though, in how his progression, at least early on.
No.
How his progression.
Tannehill's better. Tannehill moving from wide receiver to quarterback was a better quarterback than Levis. And
Tannehill had a lot of problems early on in identifying defenses and pocket awareness.
I still say it's better than Levis. And here's the thing, everyone, because I expect to trade up and I expect him to be a Colt at some point. When the Colts trade up to 1, because I think it's going to happen, a Will Levis video will be dropping the day after that. I promise you that. It's in the shoot already. So, here I am with the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers have a lot of issues. Quarterback being the biggest one, considering I think if they get a reliable quarterback, they can win their division. I don't think that's a stretch. I'm not a big fan of the wide receiver core. I know a lot of people love DJ Moore. A lot of people love him. I like him. I don't say I love him. So I could look at wide receiver, but there's no one in this class healthy. Like, if Jack Smith and Jigbo is healthy and I could see how he did this year, I could make the case for him to go up this high, but I can't with him having his injury issues. So I want to look at quarterback and defense. Well, defensive side of the ball, there's a guy standing out here in Evero. had an amazing defense with Denver last year. I think that's an understatement. He's the reason why they were in so many games when they had no right to be. That Broncos defense had a lot of things going for it, and they had some studs in this back end of the defense. I'm going to take someone that I don't think this has happened in a mock draft I've seen. I'm going to take Brian Branch here. I'm going to put him at nickel. I have Jeremy Chin already as safety. Panthers usually have something down free safety, but I would put him in at nickel. And the reason why is the Saints have a deep receiving core if Michael Thomas plays. The Falcons have Drake London, Kyle Pitts, and they're getting a pretty decent receiving core. And the Bucks have Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Guess what? Some of them are going to be lined up in the slot. Some of them are going to be lined up in your nickel back. Get Brian Branch and put him at nickel and just lock down those guys. Take away a versatile weapon on the opposing team's offense.
Okay, so Brian Branch. So, almost Super Bowl champions, and now they're into.
If they didn't like giving hugs out, they would have been.
If they, they've got. Sorry, you just completely interrupted me and lost my train of thought. But they've got a lot to do in the offseason. They have a lot of free agents, and I think that the draft is going to be pretty key for them to remain as strong as they are this year. That being said, I think they're going to go with what they do, one of the things that they do best, and they're going to go Brian Brzee here. You put him next to your draft pick from last year,
Jordan Davis.
Jordan Davis. To be quite honest, you don't have to pay some of the exorbitant salaries that are going to be demanded upon your defensive line, and you might be able to save one of your DBs that way. So we're just going to take Brzee.
Yeah. Here I am. I've been stuck taking the boring picks. I'm the ones taking the offensive line. I took this nickel back. I haven't had any flash. Well, you know what? I'm still not going to have any flash because this is the most obvious pick in the world if he's on the board. Paris Johnson Jr., the Titans, needs to happen. As we're recording earlier today, they just cut Taylor Lewan. They don't have a left tackle. You need a left tackle in the NFL. Paris Johnson Jr. can be that. Ryan Tannehill has suffered with injury issues throughout his career. He needs to be healthy. And if you want to develop Malik Willis, guess what? You need an offensive line. You need receivers. He didn't have either last year. Let's at least give him an offensive line.
There you go. I have both picks for the Texans. I like it. DeMeco Ryans the defensive guy. And I'm torn here because I'm like, I really think that he could take a couple of these players that I'm looking at and just turn them into something special. But he also needs to have some production on the offensive side as well. So they definitely need wide receivers. They've got a great running back, and their offensive line isn't bad, but I think they're going to take Jackson Smith and Jigma here. Of the three, Addison, Johnson, and Njigma, I think overall Njigma, in my opinion, is a better overall prospect. Johnson has probably the most upside that you can get out of it, and Addison is more polished as a deep threat, but I just like Njigma there.
Do you agree with me with what I'm saying is Njigba would be more highly regarded if he was healthy and we could have seen more of him?
Oh, I absolutely think so. But, his product of work from last year, it speaks unto itself. And, those Twitch athletes with their, their muscle injuries, their, soft tissue injuries, it's pretty tough. And so I just think that, he'll have the offseason to get better, strength and conditioning, and he automatically makes that wide receiving core better. We're going under the assumption that, Brandon Cooks isn't going to be there this year. So Davis Mills is going to need some weapons.
The scariest thing about Smith-Njigba is he was in a wide receiver room that he was maybe the fourth best option in the 2021 season, which is terrifying when you think about it. It's terrifying when you think the best wide receiver in that room still might be on Ohio State, and one of them just won Offensive Rookie of the Year. It's terrifying. So here I am with the Jets, and do I think the Jets have this pick in real life? No, I don't. I think they ship it off to Green Bay for Aaron Rodgers, but that's yet to happen. With this pick, I need to address an issue. Well, there's not many issues on this team besides quarterback. Now, there is, I would say, some issue on the D-line. They don't have as much depth as you want, and they don't have the ability to rotate as Robert Saleh did when he was at DC at San Francisco. So I look at this, and I look who's on the board. I'm going to look at the D linemen and Eds. Lucas Van Ness is on the board. Myles Murphy. And a guy I'm slowly loving more and more, Will McDonald. Out of those three, I think we have to look at who can help the Jets immediately, because Saleh's on the hot seat. As much as I'd like to take Will McDonald here, I think it's going to take him a little bit to adjust the NFL. So I look at Van Ness and Murphy. Murphy is someone I don't know how great he is because he had other great players around him. When I watched Van Ness this past weekend, there were a bunch of no-name guys around him that I don't think will make the NFL, but he was still putting in a lot of work. That being said, Iowa's defense is always good with no matter how bad their offense is. They make no sense. But Lucas Van Ness looks like he's more polished and more ready for the NFL. You pair him up with Quentin Williams, you can have a lot of pass rush situations on Josh Allen, Tua Tagovailoa, and anybody in New England, because I don't know who's going to be the quarterback by week 5. Mac Jones doesn't pick it up. That being said, I think Van Ness is the right pick for the Jets.
Okay. I like that pick. Yeah, so the Patriots are on the clock. And I just don't think that they should be drafting wide receivers in the first round. They don't do a very good job of it.
I don't think most teams should draft a wide receiver in the first round. They don't do a good job of it.
This could be true. So they've got a new offensive coordinator.
An actual offensive coordinator.
An actual offensive coordinator. And so I'm sure that later on in the draft, Bill will get them some things. But we are going to go with Nolan Smith out of Georgia.
Yeah.
We're gonna put him opposite, and he's a freak athlete. He's had a couple injuries, but he flashes, and he is the kind of toolsy type prospect that Belichick will just love.
I don't see Belichick liking him. I don't. And the reason I say this is whenever you watched him, he got his pressures because everyone was focused on the interior of the D-line. I feel Nolan Smith is a product of Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis. I'm not high on him at all. I don't think he's an NFL starting edge.
Well, time will tell.
Here I am with the Packers, and like I said, by April, I don't think they'll have Aaron Rodgers, so I think they'll have 2 firsts, but we only have 1 first here. This is a team that historically drafts wide receivers in the second round pretty great. As much as the media criticizes them for not taking guys in the first round, they're really good at what they do. Let's keep it that way. Their DB rooms caused me a lot of concerns. Jair Alexander, he's been having more injury issues every year, and he's getting paid a boatload of money. Rasul Douglas might have to be a cap casualty with getting rid of Rodgers. There needs to be some stability back there in the secondary. And there are some guys on the board I do like here, but there's also some other positions the Packers need to address. They're going to have to pay Rashawn Gary a lot of money. Is he a free agent this year or the next year? Either way, it's a lot of money. I don't know if they keep him long term. But if we're looking at corners here, which is where I do want to go because I do think they need more help in the secondary. We have Christian Gonzalez, Joey Porter Jr., Deontay Banks, and my other two guys aren't here, Cam Smith and Clark Phillips. Those are the guys I like. I look at the Packers, and they need a press man, in my opinion. I think Joey Porter Jr. would be a pick here, but I don't think he's the best guy on the board. I'm going to take Deontay Banks out of Maryland. I think Deontay Banks is just a better corner than the rest of the other guys on the board here. If you told me that before, I would have laughed at you, but I like him more than Cam Smith. I like him more than Joey Porter Jr. Joey Porter Jr. is 23, and he's not as polished as I'd like. And Cam Smith does have his lapses in coverage that does scare me a bit at the NFL level, especially covering a Justin Jefferson or Adam Thielen or Amon-Ra St. Brown, whoever the Bears bring in by paying a lot of money to.
Well, that works out just fine because Washington's on the clock right now, and they're going to take Joey Porter Jr. And I know a lot of people like Banks. I think he's going to struggle more so in the NFL. I'm not saying he's going to be bad. I'm just going to say I think that he is going to have a little bit harder time than everybody thinks. And I think that Joey Porter is the real deal.
I think he's going to be making a move to safety earlier in his career. That's what I think Porter's going to be moved to.
I don't know.
So
I don't think so.
Here I am. And if you're paying attention to my screen, the screen right now, you're seeing the position I'm clicking on of where I think the Steelers are going to go. Interior liner cornerback. And I did that so you can see with what I'm looking at. Christian Gonzalez, I'm sorry everyone, I'm not sold on him as a top 20 pick. I have no problem with him going to a team like the Chargers. I think the Ravens could do good stuff with him. The Vikings need a body at corner, really. And the Jags like those projects. So, we got Gonzalez. Not taking him. O'Cyrus Torrence, I'm in love with. He was great at Florida last year, and he does have versatility. He was a left tackle at the University of Louisiana before transferring to Florida, where he was an All-American guard his first year at the Power 5 level and at the SEC level, which is an insane jump from Group of 5 to SEC All-American. You also have guys like Cam Smith, who I really like, and Clark Phillips III. Clark Phillips III is probably the guy I'd consider here most at cornerbacks. Why is that? He's versatile. He's a good nickel, but he's also a good outside corner. He plays the catch very, very well, and I think he's got a high potential here. But as much as I do like Clark Phillips, I have to take O'Cyrus Torrence just because I need to protect Kenny Pickett, and I need to create rushing lanes for Najee Harris. These are two issues the Steelers have had issues with in the past couple of years. They have not had issues running the ball because left guard has just been inconsistent in Kevin Dotson. He's had a lot of holding calls. He's had a lot of false starts. He had a lot of penalty issues. And he just has not been the best pass blocker. O'Cyrus Torrence proved that he can run block at Florida and he can pass block. He was great at both, and I think he's a great pick at number 17th overall.
I think picking him for most any team in any spot in this draft is a good pickup, but that's just me. So
now some teams don't need a guard.
Most teams can use a guard. So with the Lions back on the clock, and I'm lucky. It's like all these double picked, and it seems like I've been able to get them all. So
that's why I prefer the evens.
We addressed the secondary already, and I think that they're going to be able to add, like I said, in this class, there's a lot more edge help than other places. And I know that there's a lot of tight end depth as well, but I'm going to take Michael Mayer here. They did really well when they had Hawkinson and they traded him, and I understand why they traded him, but giving another middle of the field threat, who he is a good blocker, and just gives him more weapons. I like it.
So here I am with the Bucks, and The Bucs are going to be bad next year. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm going to give him someone they can develop. Someone I think has all the tools and will be a versatile pass rusher in due time, but it's going to take a bit. But guess what? I don't think this team's going to be all that great. I think it's going to be a bad year. I think it's going to be a bounce back year. I'm taking Will McDonald at Iowa State. He's a freak athlete. High potential. He does have bust potential, I'm not going to lie, but he's someone that the Bucs can use. They have an aging defense. They have an aging offense. They have an aging team in general, and they have a lot of contracts coming up. Could they go receiver here and move off Mike Evans? Yes, but I don't think moving off Mike Evans is the goal you should do if you're the Bucs, with just how much the fans love and support him. If you're going through a dark time, you want someone the fans can grab a hold to, and I think Evans is that guy. So we're going to look at the defensive side of the ball. We're going to clear out some of those players, and we're going to bring in some youth and some high athleticism.
Besides that, I don't think that they can really move off of him this year salary cap wise either, can they?
He's on the last year of his contract, so I believe they can.
Okay. Alrighty. So I get the Seahawks, and I'm not going to lie, got a little bit bummed when you took O'Cyrus Torrence.
Yeah, he ain't making it past me if I'm picking with the Steelers.
So, still dealing with that Bryce Young pick. We still need a lot of defensive help. At this stage of the game, looking at everything, I think they're going to take Myles Murphy. His pass rush isn't all that it's cracked up to be, but he's great against the run. Seattle's really struggled against the run. He is a freak athlete. Hopefully he can develop into something else. So you're going to take Myles Murphy right there.
Okay. So the Chargers here, I'm going to shout out a podcast real quick. Bootleg Football with EJ Snyder and Brett Coleman. And throughout the year, they kept on calling the Chargers wide receiver room slow. And it's hard to disagree. Kellen Moore, he likes to air it out, doesn't he? That new OC, he likes to air it out. So we need a wide receiver that's fast, explosive. We need Quentin Johnston. As you said, he has the tools to be potentially the best guy, but there are concerns. He doesn't have the best catching ability. He struggles sometimes with that. But the Chargers have two wide receivers in Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. Mike Williams, who is suffering a back injury, I don't know how it's affecting him long term, so I'm not going to speak on that. But they need some speed. They need someone over the top. Kellen Moore is not afraid to call up the deep shots. He calls them up often. The reins are going to be let loose on Justin Herbert this year. It's going to be very fun to watch. And I think you need a fast receiver to take over the top. And before someone says this, because I've seen Lance Zierlein talk a lot about him being a really, really good player. I don't think Jalen Hyatt is a first or second round pick. He is fast. He is very fast. That's all he is. Johnston at least has more tools, and you saw with how TCU utilized him. He could play a Deebo Samuel role if needed.
Well, the Ravens are on the clock, and
what did the Rams have to trade? They trade Donald to Baltimore? Ramsey?
Who knows? They could use Ramsey.
He could use
but
a lot.
Speaking of cornerbacks, they're going to take Christian Gonzalez here, and they can utilize him. They can help him with some of that lackadaisical pressures that he does have, and they actually do really well working with in their secondary. So I think that he'll do well there.
Same with the Vikings. The Vikings need cornerback help. It's not hard to figure out. That's a big issue. But there's a guy on the board. I can't let it keep slipping. Because you look at this cornerback draft. It has guys you can get round 2. It's a very deep class. Now, will I get the guy I want? Probably not, because I don't think he'll make it that far. But the ceiling on Kirk Cousins is what it is. You're not going to the Super Bowl with him. But he does give you the chance to work and develop a young quarterback. and he is a smart guy. He can sit down and work with him. We're going to take Anthony Richardson here with the Minnesota Vikings. Sit him for 2 years, maybe 3 if it's required, and let him learn the offense. Let him develop. Let him go along at his own pace. You got to remember here, he has had a new offensive coordinator every single year at Florida. That is hard. This is going to be his 4th OC in 4 years. That's hard for any quarterback. That's hard for a college quarterback going to the NFL. I think he needs stability, and I think sitting him behind Kirk Cousins, letting him learn that offense, letting him get comfortable with that offense would be huge.
Not a bad thought process. So now we are with Jacksonville Jack. Talk about a turnaround from Jacksonville, from just absolute ghetto 2 years ago to making the playoffs last year.
Well, a lot of it had to do with coaching.
Yeah.
I would like to, if we can ever invent time travel, let's not prevent Urban Meyer from going to the Jaguars. Let's get Doug Pearson in there for Lawrence's rookie year. I want to see how good they are his rookie year.
You never know. I think, of course, they could use some interior offensive line, some secondary help. But I think we're going to go for them is we're going to go Keon White. They do tend to get bullied a little bit on the defensive line.
Good God, how far down is he? 53. Answer my question. Sorry, everyone. Just scrolling.
I really like him. I thought he flashed really well at the Senior Bowl. I think they can actually utilize him in a position that's more suited to his strengths. He can go inside and outside both. And now you're not going to be putting him up on the actual center and letting him get manhandled by a center guard combination. I think he'll actually do pretty well.
Yep. So here are the Giants, and by all reports, they're going to overpay Daniel Jones, it seems like. I love Daniel Jones. I'm one of Daniel Jones' biggest fans. He is not going to be worth the money they're paying him. Which makes me think when it comes down to this, the 25th pick is going to be Bijan Robinson in real life, because I don't think they're bringing back Saquon if they're going to be paying Daniel Jones this much money. I think Saquon's out the door. But
so are you thinking Saquon's out the door and they're going to franchise Jones?
I think Saquon's out the door and they sign him long term. I think you have to cut money where you can cut it, and saving $8 million on a running back, or how much, that's saving money you need to address on your team. Because I don't think it's a loaded roster to the point you can argue paying a running back is worth it. Because the Giants have a lot of holes. So I do think come April, I think Bijan's the pick here, but I don't take Bijan because I am anti-running back, and I think there are good running backs later on in this class. By anti-running back, I mean anti-running back first round. But it's very clear the Giants need receivers. This ain't no mystery. My number one receiver on the board still is Zay Flowers. I'm going to take Flowers. I'm just not going to look back. It's an easy pick for me. I address the need for New York, and I get him. They just got rid of, was it Sterling Shepard? I believe his name was?
Oh, I did not know they got rid of him.
I believe they cut him or something. It was something. They got rid of him. I think this team it needs to overhaul its receiving core, especially after trading Tony. You have Wan'Dale Robinson. Let's get Zay Flowers in there. Let's rebuild this receiving core. Up next, Kenny Galladay, if you can get out from under that deal.
Well, Dallas is thanking you for not taking Bijan. And I'm a homer for this pick simply because
Cowboy homer.
This allows you to move off of Zeke. And you don't really want to put all your eggs in Pollard's basket with a long-term deal. It's going to take more than a year for him to come back from that injury to where he's 100%. It's all explosive back. So you take Bijan Robinson. Dak needs to have a really good running game. So we're going to go with that.
And this is the easiest pick I can make. The Bills not only lost something when lost something mentally when Damar Hamlin was out, they lost a great player. Damar Hamlin's a very good defensive player. He can come in and play a lot of positions for them. Clark Phillips III, man, this is the guy you put a nickel. The Bengals were killing the Bills because they just kept on attacking the nickel. Get yourself a great nickel. Teams, it's not hard. And Clark Phillips can do that. And he can play on the outside too if you have any injury concerns in the future with Tre'Davious White. And you have two guys who's invested first-round picks in back-to-back years in Kaiir Elam and Clark Phillips.
There you go. The Bengals are on the clock. Now, we know that the Bengals were able to manufacture an offensive line against Buffalo, and they didn't do so great against KC. Chris Jones kind of tore them up big time. Yes, they had two backups playing on the edge, but they're going to go Broderick Jones here.
Sweet.
I guess. I'm sorry?
Sweet. I like that as a Steelers fan.
That's fine. You're not going to like it when he develops and he's pushing everybody around.
So. No, but I think Highsmith, his first year, feeds him his lunch and destroys him. Not Jones fan.
We'll see.
Yeah. And before we get into this, my thought process is the first two guys in Paris Johnson and Skronsky, whether you call Skronsky a tackle or guard, they're elite. Then you go to the second tier, which I only have O'Cyrus Sorensen, and then you go to the third tier, which I feel is a major drop-off. I'm not a Broderick Jones guy. I'm not a Darrell Wright guy. I think they're fine, but I don't think they're going to be NFL-capable day-one starters out of the gate. And especially when you look at Broderick, you put him in a division in the AFC North, he's going to have a hard time developing because he's going to be going against the Steelers where you can put Highsmith. Maybe you throw TJ Watt on him. Maybe you put Cam Hayward on the edge. You got Myles Garrett. You have the Ravens with how they come up with blitz packages. It is a trial by fire, and it's not something I would do with Joe Burrow using a development tackle there.
Well, I don't think he's a development tackle. I think he's gonna step right in and play day one. He did play in the toughest conference in football. He didn't give up a sack last year, so obviously he's got some skill. And yeah, he's going to learn. He's going to give up pressures and he's going to give up sacks.
May I ask you, what pass rush did he face that was vaunted last year?
Still, who did he have to go against? Right? He had to go against Alabama.
No, he didn't.
Didn't have to go against Alabama?
Nope, they didn't play Alabama last year.
Well, like I said, it's still the toughest division.
Yeah, I'm pulling up right now. 2022, Oregon, when Oregon was really bad. Samford, I don't need to go on that. South Carolina, Kent State, Missouri, Auburn, Vanderbilt, Florida, Tennessee, Mississippi State, Georgia Tech, LSU, Ohio State, and TCU. There were some good ones. Ohio State's got a good pass rush, but not on the edge with what we're seeing right now. LSU is Harold Perkins. Harold Perkins lines up on the opposite side of Broderick Jones. Keon White lined up on the opposite side of Broderick Jones. Then you look at the rest. There was no real great pass rush there at the rest. Florida, you'd argue, had the best one in Prince, and I cannot pronounce his last name. He'll be eligible next year, but he was still really developing at that point because he wasn't made the number one guy with them still having Brenton Cox Jr. on the roster. Broderick Jones was not tested all last year. This whole thought process of him being day one ready is because he played at Georgia. A lot of Alabama tackles tend to fail in the NFL because they had other guys around him. Broderick Jones screams like that to me. I don't believe he's an NFL day one tackle. I think he's a 2-year guy away from starting. I said the same thing about Trevor Penning when I watched him last year. He is my Trevor Penning in this class. I don't think he's all that great, and I don't think he'll have long-term success. As a Steelers fan, I love if the Bengals took him because I don't think he is a guy there that can play and hold up the AFC North. If you want him to play, you need to send him somewhere a pass rush isn't vaunted out of the gate. The New Orleans Saints. Now, the Saints have a lot of issues. I don't like the quarterback. Their D-line's old. I don't like their cornerback room. Their safeties are old. This is not a good team. I don't like their line either, but they invested a first-round pick in Trevor Penning last year. I don't think there's a tackle I'd take here. But I'm not going to take long on this because I'm just going to take Cam Smith. He is my highest-rated player on the board. He's fell all the way down to pick 29. I have to take him, and I can't just let a guy go that I have rated so highly when the team is needing so many pieces. They're not going to contend this upcoming year, and probably the year after that. They just need to get players in there, and they need to cut cost. Marshawn Lattimore might be a cap casualty. If you have to move off him, you need a cornerback. Cam Smith can be that guy.
So the Eagles on the clock at 30. As we've talked about, they need defensive line, probably secondary help. I'm going to go Tyreek Stevenson. I really like his measurables. He held up really, really good in the Senior Bowl. And I think that with his size and strength, not only will he be able to help play against the run, but he'll also be good in coverage.
Are you concerned about him with the deep ball?
You could say that, but their safeties are really good. And so, at least early on.
But a lot of their safeties are UFAs, aren't they?
But one is. But the thing is, even in the Senior Bowl, he did well on the long ball. So,
that Middle Tennessee State game's burned into my memory. As I'm sure it is burned to every Miami fan, and as a Gator fan, I love it. But, yeah, rough outing. So here with the Chiefs, and yeah, I'm not going to take my time. Dalton Kincaid. And I know they have Kelsey. Guess what? Kelsey lines up anywhere. You take the best player on the board, and that's Dalton Kincaid. You're the Chiefs. You're Andy Reid. You take whatever you want, and you say deal with it, NFL. I run 2 tight ends. Good luck stopping them both. You ain't gonna. They'll be laughing their way to another Lombardi, which they'll probably do anyways with whoever they take at 31. But Dalton Kincaid would surely help their quest.
It's not a bad choice. I think giving weapons to
Mahomes?
To Andy Reid. Well, to Andy Reid and Mahomes is always a good thing. So
here's something to touch up on real quick. Any concerns with Bieniemy leaving or?
No, not for me. I honestly think that Andy Reid is still the predominant of the offense. I think Bieniemy was a good OC, and he did help with the game plannings, but that's Andy Reid.
Yeah. Well,
so I think Bieniemy helped more along with player development.
Which he did a very good job if that's the case. If you look how well a lot of those players developed in Washington. Not a bad spot to prove yourself as to be a head coach. I know a lot of people say it's controversial. Bieniemy made the right move, in my opinion, going to Washington. Especially
I agree. He needed to get out from underneath that shadow. And the thing is nobody was really giving him that much of an option because everybody considers it to be it's Andy Reid, it's Andy Reid, it's Andy Reid. This way he can prove his worth. And if their offense actually flashes next year, I would not be surprised if he is a front runner for a head coaching job the following year.
And I know what a lot of people blame why Bieniemy's not head coaching. That could be a factor. I'm not in the meeting rooms. The biggest factor to me why I would not have hired Bieniemy to be a head coach, Matt Nagy. Matt Nagy ruined Andy Reid offense systems in my head. I had to get past that with Doug Peterson. He won a Super Bowl. He needs to prove himself outside Andy Reid. He needs to prove that he can call a game, structure a game plan, do everything right. And here's the thing. Everything you've read, Washington really likes Sam Howell, rightfully so. If you work something with him, you got a head coaching job. And who knows? Maybe Ron Rivera's hiring his successor in Washington.
You never know. It also will depend upon if there is actually a sell of that team or not.
That is true. But wouldn't a nice potential head coach candidate that the media loves and talks up a lot, wouldn't that be like, hey, he's on the team already, don't you want him?
No, there's absolutely hiring. You're not only you're hiring within, but you're giving credence to a head coaching candidate that has not had success getting hired on as a head coach for 3 years now.
And Washington needs as much good publicity as they can with Snyder as their owner. It'll never be enough for them, and they'll always find a way to ruin it. But that's going to wrap us up for today. I hope everyone enjoyed this, and like I said, there probably won't be another one till around free agency, whether we do that right before it starts or right after it, because free agency will mess this up completely. It will happen. Derek Carr going somewhere will mess this up completely. Aaron Rodgers getting traded will mess this up completely. But that's the fun of mock drafts this far out. Anything can happen, and it's a fun, exciting time of the year. This is where I like to call, we're about to enter Black Friday in the NFL. And when I say that, I mean free agency. Because we're gearing up. We're gearing up like for you do for Black Friday. Okay, what do we want to get for Christmas? What do we want to get for Christmas? Then Black Friday hits, and you got, okay, month out from the draft. Let's finish this entirely. That's where we are. So everyone, have a great weekend. Be safe. I know the country's getting hit with some weather right now. Be safe driving roads. Here in Montana, I believe it's negative 25 outside today, correct?
With the wind chill.
Yeah, with the wind chill. It's freezing. Be safe and have a great day and weekend, everyone.